this. I would go. Are we talking about the future or the past? Or both? Thanks to Diana and Visinger for suggesting this topic, and we're going to look today at how to use would in the past and future. Now, we use would in the future as part of second conditional sentences. For example, if I had a lot of money, I would buy a boat. If I had a lot of money is a hypothetical condition, and I would buy a boat is the result in the future if that condition were true. When you finish watching this video, I recommend you watch that one in which I explain all the things you need to know about the second conditional. So the main use of would is in conditional sentences, and another way we use it is to be polite when we're asking for something. Instead of I want, we can say I would like, and it's a much more polite and indirect way of saying I want. I want to go with you. This could be quite direct and rude, but if I say I would like to go with you, it sounds much more gentle and friendly. Pass me the salt. Again, that's rude, it's direct, so we tend to say expressions like, would you pass me the salt? And by using would, it makes it more gentle, more friendly, and more polite. So when do we use would in the past? Well, it's actually very, very similar, but not exactly the same, to used to. So look at some of these examples here. I used to live in England, but now I live in Spain. I used to go to Anfield to watch Liverpool, but I can't now because I'm in Spain. I used to drive to work every day, but now I work from home. So these all describe past habits, okay? Things that were true in the past, but they're not true now. I used to live in England. I used to go to Liverpool. I used to drive to work. None of these things are true now, but because they were past habits, we use used to. And if you want to learn more ways of using the expression used to, watch that video after this one. And I'll put a link in the description too. So what about would? When can we use would in the past? Well, look at these examples here. When I was 17, every Friday I would meet my friends and we would watch a movie and we would order a pizza. I went to university when I was 18, but I would always meet my friends when I returned for the holidays. When I moved to Spain, me and my friends would keep in touch via email. So, like used to, these sentences all describe past habits that were true in the past, but they're not true now. But there's one important difference. The reason we can use would in these situations is that the action I'm talking about is repeated again and again and again. Friday night movie and pizza? It was almost every Friday. It was a repeated action. Me going to watch Liverpool at Anfield? Well, it wasn't every week, but it was a repeated action and it was something that happened again and again and again. And writing emails to my friends to keep in touch? Again, it wasn't just one email, it was an action that was repeated again and again and again. So can we use used to in these situations where I used would? Yes, no problem, you can. You will sound a little bit more formal if you use would in these situations. But can we use would instead of used to? Not always. You see, we only use would for actions that were repeated again and again and again. However, we use used to for actions that happened again and again and again, but also for states or extended actions. So let's have a look at the examples I used earlier when I was talking about used to, and let's see if we can use would in those situations. I used to live in England, but now I live in Spain. Can we use would in this situation? No, because the action of living in England was not a repeated action. I didn't live in England many times. I lived in England for an extended period of time. So in this situation, we have to use used to. I used to go to the stadium to watch Liverpool. Can we use would in this situation? Yes, because it's a repeated action. I didn't go every week, but I went repeated times again and again and again, so we can use would. And I used to drive to work, but now I work from home. Can we say I would drive to work, but now I work from home? Yes, because it was a repeated action. Again, it happened again and again and again, so would is fine, but a little bit more formal than used to. As I said earlier, the most common way that we use would is in conditional sentences. So now would be a great time to revise all those conditional sentences. There's a playlist of all the conditional videos that I've done in the description, but I recommend you start with the second conditional, which you can watch there. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, like, subscribe, and blah, blah, blah. And I'll see you in that video next. Bye for now.